Hello once again on a balmy hump day. Oh yeah, it's Wednesday, the 5th, that's right, the 5th of January. I know the date for once because yesterday the 4th of January was a very important date for travel to Thailand, and it appears as if nothing was done, nothing decisively announced, basically just allowing travellers to be in limbo land longer than they have to be, and that's nothing new. It was also the day I got my plumber to come round finally and get the leak in the front fixed, and it cost me $350, which sounds like a lot of money, but gee, it is hard work digging that ditch. Had to dig quite a deep ditch. I'll insert some footage here for you to see what was happening. And it was quite deep, and he had to bail out the water from it, and it was absolutely horrible weather. When he turned up, it was around midday, and I looked it up online. It was 36 degrees, and it said it felt like 44 degrees. So you could just imagine what it'd be like working under those conditions. It didn't take him that long to do. It was probably an hour or so, I suppose, the actual job, maybe 2 hours. But it was really hard yakka, and even though it cost a fair bit, he is a plumber after all. The rate for plumbers, I was told by the other plumber, Ryan, told me it was $90 an hour that they charge. So, but this guy had special equipment worth about 20 grand, which apparently a minimum charge of 200 just to detect where the actual where the leak is. And even once he detected the leak, then it was quite a bit of work in actually digging the trench, and then he had to go and get parts to basically put in another section of pipe. It is a PVC pipe in the front, and what happened was that the Cuban royal, the big palm tree that I had removed, unfortunately I didn't get it removed soon enough, because by that time the roots had already started to stuff up that pipe. So it just vindicates my opinion that it was a bad place to plant that huge palm tree just right next to the house. It was a stupid place to do it, really, and just total ignorance of where they should plant stuff. Mind you, these are probably the same people that planted the rubber tree down the back, and that is not a smart move in a suburban block, because the roots creep all over the place and cause havoc with neighbours. So some dumb decisions were made, and they might have been made 30 years ago, so I guess it's lasted a fair while. He did say after finishing the job that, look, I might get another leak, because now that the pressure's on in a different part of the pipe, so it does happen that once you fix one leak you might be up for another one. Hopefully not. I mean, I can't afford too many jobs like that. That's pretty pricey. It's about the same I paid to go to from Sydney to Phuket and back. And yeah, I've got a pretty big update on that story too. Today I decided to finally pull the plug on the Thai trip, mainly because the Thai government just seems to be unable to make a decisive announcement about what's going on. They just keep flopping about like a fish in a wet market. You don't know where they're coming from, what they're doing, and the only information we've got is actually suggestions from ministers and experts. That's all we've got. The actual government hasn't got around to making an official comment, even though it's crucial for the Thai tourist industry. If I was working in Thailand, I reckon I'd be marching in the streets to demand a reform of the whole thing. I think the TAT, which is the Thailand Tourist Authority, I think they should be totally reformed, probably scrapped and start from scratch, because they spent a huge budget on an international campaign to attract tourists to Thailand, but didn't do the basics. Like, the basics are that if someone wants to go to your country, they have to have some certainty of where they're going to stand when they get there. And I've heard stories, apparently people in certain provinces of Thailand, that's the other problem, each province seems to have their own rules, so it's a real patchwork, so it's very confusing. But I think a couple of the provinces are actually demanding you have a PCR test before you go and have a drink or eat. I mean, how can you live like that? I mean, if it's a tourist, so every night you've got to go and have another test, do you, just to go and have a drink? And I'm thinking, I know that the Bangla Road has just been locked down because they're doing a major cleaning on it because they found so many cases there. That was one of the crucial factors that made me decide to pull the plug, because I'm thinking, if I can't even go down to Bangla Road and have a drink, I mean, things were looking fine a week or so ago, even a few days ago, but they're not now. It's actually been closed down. And who knows whether there's going to be a lockdown. It's closed down for deep cleaning, which probably means they'll be out of commission for about a week. But less and less tourists are going to arrive now. A lot of people like me are going to cancel their trips. It's a disaster, and this is the peak period for Thailand. So I personally think they've basically destroyed their tourism industry. And the thing you've got to remember is, by cutting off the spigot of tourists, the infrastructure will start to dwindle. People will get out of the industry and repurpose hotels for long-term accommodation, for instance. All the infrastructure for taking people to islands, the boats, all that stuff. These people have got to live on something, and it's not. And if it's not fishing, who knows what it is. But I think there'll be a lot of cheap boats for sale in Thailand the next 6 months. So if you want to buy yourself a boat, it's probably a great time to go there, because I think the Thai government has done a fantastic job of royally screwing 20% of their economy, which is tourism. And now I think it's down to below 2% because of the devastation. They've overreacted to the latest variant. It's not as bad as people think. Some of the experts keep telling us that it is, but the people aren't buying it anymore. Not in Australia, not in the West, but maybe Thailand. They're getting. I know they're pretty paranoid, the Thai population, about it. So, no, their own worst enemies might be. And I think they're going to have to come to terms with living with a much smaller boutique tourism industry. The days of mass tourism to Thailand are over. And it's going to be very hard to pick up the pieces and resurrect the glory days. I think there was too much tourism there personally anyway, so I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for Thailand, but it's a huge shock therapy for people in the industry to basically have boom times followed by nothing for a couple of years. I mean, it's just... Yeah, so that's the situation. And on top of all that, once I actually went to booking.com and cancelled both my accommodation bookings. And there's no penalty because it's way ahead of time. And I feel sorry for the people who run these places, because I checked it out thoroughly, the hotel I'm staying at. I'm sure it's a very good hotel. The people seem to be great. And I feel really sorry for them. But, you know, we've always got to look out for number one. And all I could say to them is they've got to basically get into the ear of government and get things changed, because they can't go on like this. As I say, that place may not be in existence as a hotel in 12 months. Anything's possible, and Bangla Road could take a death spiral too. They've already tried to destroy Pattaya, and you know, who knows. The final nail in the coffin actually was today when Peter, who's a UK YouTuber, and poor old Peter, he's only gone over there for a couple of weeks, which I would suggest no one do. Don't go on a short trip. If you have to go to Thailand, make sure it's a long trip, because chances are what happens to you what could happen to you is what's happened to Peter. And what's happened to Peter is on his last PCR test before flying back to the UK, he tested positive. So he put a 30-second camera video just announcing that. It's just terrible news. I mean, he might have to be in some austere ACQ quarantine hotel for 2 weeks. And they're not much fun, I'll tell you. From what I've seen, there's very little furniture. Everything's just basically stark. It's like prison cell stuff. And you're not allowed to drink either, I don't think, so that's just wonderful. It's just not worth the risk, in my opinion. When I saw that video, I said, yes, I'm glad I cancelled the tickets. I've probably done myself out of $500 worth of airline tickets, because I got a sale with Jetstar, but if I cancel those tickets, I don't know if I'll get anything back from them. I'll have to double check that. I can't find an equivalent sheet fare to transfer it for somewhere else. I'd have to still be for Phuket, and I don't want to go to Phuket, to be quite frank. My next trip overseas will be to Vietnam, and that'll definitely be in the second half of this year at the earliest. But I couldn't imagine the Vietnamese being as haphazard as the Thais have with the changes of policy. I think it might signpost the way the whole country's being run. It's actually, I'll make a prediction here. I think maybe Vietnam at some stage will leapfrog Thailand, because I think there's some poor governance over there that's going to hold back their economy, not just the tourist segment. So we'll see. Well, apparently they're splashing out big bucks on, I think it was 8 F-15 state-of-the-art fighters from the US. Don't know where the money's coming from for those, but anyway. Look, I'm glad this is finally resolved. I just did a bit of gardening before. I've been putting it off because I'm thinking if I'm going to be away from here for a month, gardening is not going to be my top priority. Just survival for the garden would be enough, but it's just not going to be worth it. Whew, it is really hot. Not as hot as yesterday. Mickey, I think his name was, who did the plumbing. Oh boy, he consumed so much water, I couldn't believe it. He just guzzled it. He was that dehydrated. It was bloody hard work, and he had to take a couple of rests. It was that bad under my veranda out front. So yeah, like I said, $350, but gee, I reckon he earned that money. So and it's dry out the front now, which is a nice change. I haven't got a swamp anymore. He did say I can expect a fairly hefty water bill coming up in the next round from the council one. I think even the last one was fairly high, so I think it's been leaking for a long time, and it's just been exacerbated when I actually changed the washers. It lowered the pressure and then increased it so much that it caused major cracking in the pipe. Anyway, yeah, he used this little spigot thing to actually goes into the ground. He has headphones. He can actually listens to where the actual water is coming from. He had to do it at a number of places in the front yard. It was like gold prospecting, with one of those metal detectors. He's putting a spike into the ground, which went maybe half a metre into the ground, and he had headphones and was listening in for the signs of the leak. So it's a real specialist area. He has his own compressor, and apparently the equipment costs about 20 grand all up, so it's a specialist area of plumbing. So there you go. That's all done. Now my only trip coming up is up to Brisbane, which is a lot easier to handle. And the only other complication I have now is I still haven't got my passport back from the Thai embassy in Canberra. I sent them a message yesterday, and they came back with an incoherent response. So my faith in Thai bureaucracy is not at a high level right now, I've got to say. And as I say, it signposts to me that their economy might be in for some rough weather. This is very speculative, I've got to say. I actually planted a big creeper, had a huge runner coming off it. I actually planted it right down the back there, and I repotted the fern-type plant. I hope I didn't destroy too much of its root system, but hopefully it'll survive, and hopefully that'll do well. Other plants here are doing okay, yeah, I'll put more of a focus back onto my gardening now that I know I'm going to be here and only away for 1 week, and that's not going to cause too much strife. They'll probably get a big downpour in that time. This is the wet season after all, so I don't think watering's going to be an issue, and I don't have to worry about getting someone in to mow or look after the property. Seeing, I'm not going to be away for 60 days, so that's good. I think my next overseas trip will probably be 30 days to Vietnam, assuming everything's okay, assuming my health's okay, assuming the COVID madness has receded to some degree. This is not the way I expected things to turn out, to be honest. I thought things were getting better. The streamlined system that Thailand had introduced seemed to be a signpost that things were going to be liberalised, but it's gone backwards, and they're going to pay a huge price for it, I think. Anyway, look, have a good day. Please give me thumbs up, thumbs down, comment, and think about supporting the channel if you want. It's up to you. Anyway, hope you're having a good one, and hope you're not sweating quite as much as I am. I think I'll have another gulp of water when I go inside. Yeah, it is summer after all.